Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me once again, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Unfortunately, no Logan this week because we are covering Logan, the film Logan. I believe Logan is still probably out on his honeymoon, so
I believe he is, yeah.
Have fun out there, Logan. I know this would have been a fun one for him to jump on because I do know he likes this one quite a bit. We are talking about Logan in the lead up to Deadpool and Wolverine. As I mentioned last week, a couple weeks ago, I don't remember. We're kind of trading off between our Acolyte episodes, and we're doing Logan here. We'll wrap up with Acolyte next week, episode 7 and 8, and then end of the month we will do Deadpool 2 to coincide with the Deadpool and Wolverine release. We've already done Deadpool back when, so there's that D Plus episode of that, back when it came to Disney Plus and was like the first R-rated thing on Disney Plus, and it was like, this is weird. This is weird that we're watching this, but
Yep. It's
here it is.
Similar to this
Yeah,
as well.
watching this, it was like, oh, that's right. There's a girl flashing her boobs. This is weird. I'm watching just boobs on Disney Plus. All right. So yes, our history lesson here. Logan was originally released March 3rd, 2017. Other releases of the time, it was a quiet beginning of 2017. So in order to kind of like flesh this out, I had to go back to end of 2016 a little bit. Assassin's Creed and Passengers and Sing all came out December 21st, 2016. Passengers, I believe, was the Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence film where they're like, stranded in space or whatever.
They're on a colony ship, and
like Chris Pratt's thing goes off early, and so
the ship wakes him up early because he's an engineer and he can fix the ship because it encountered a thing.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up
her.
Jennifer Lawrence because he's so freaking lonely. Yeah. And he fell in love with her at first sight when they were boarding the ship.
Yeah, lots of problematic things in that.
Oh, entirely.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, like full on, like
they confront it. Yeah.
They absolutely confront it. Like it is not that was so romantic. It's like, this was so messed up that you did that to me. Like what am I supposed to do? And so to make it up to her, he like fixes her pod and like she can get back into it. And then she makes the decision to stay with him because that's her decision she chooses to make.
Spoilers.
Yeah, sorry, I don't like. I'm sorry about that. If it ever comes to Disney Plus, oopsies.
Anyway, yes. Hidden Figures was then December 25th. Split was January 20th, 2017. The Anya Taylor-Joy and James McAvoy M. Night Shyamalan film that ended up being a surprise Unbreakable sequel at the end. Spoilers on that one. We'll just spoil everything we got.
Everything's a spoiler here in this. I mean, that D Plus show is usually spoiler filled.
Yeah.
So. Usually it's just for that movie, though.
February 10th brought us one of the wildest combos of movies I can think of here with the Lego Batman movie, John Wick Chapter 2, and 50 Shades Darker. Industry was really trying to hit a whole bunch of different markets that weekend for like Valentine's Day weekend.
I went to go see John Wick Chapter 2.
There you go. I don't think I saw any of those in theaters. And I only saw the Lego Batman movie well after the fact. Get Out was February 24th. Logan here, March 3rd, 2017. And with Logan, actually, I guess probably with Get Out, the week or so before, was probably kind of our kickoff of like a string of things, because we have Get Out, we have Logan. The following weekend was Kong Skull Island. Following that, on March 17th, was the live-action Beauty and the Beast. Following that, on March 24th, was Power Rangers. And then March 31st, Ghost in the Shell and the Boss Baby. And then April 14th was The Fate of the Furious. So a little bit of a spring box office run of things there. Obviously, Ghost in the Shell, a little bit of controversy around that one.
For sure.
The Scarlett Johansson-ness of it. But then also, probably wouldn't have been made without Scarlett Johansson. So that's always the thing you kind of have to juggle with that kind of crap. Box office breakdown, as we are looking a little bit at a movie from the past. I've pulled together the box office numbers here, and I'm going to have Cameron kind of guess where he think it fell in terms of our domestic and worldwide grosses. The domestic gross in 2017, $226.2 million, which was up from the previous film, The Wolverines, $132.5 million domestic. So, despite the fact that this was a R-rated film and was going to have seemingly a less drawing power, really breathed some new life into Logan as he wound down his time. So, where do you think 226.2 million fell in the grand scheme of 2017?
For me in 2017, like you're talking about, like we mentioned some heavy hitter films. We're talking about, what was it? Sing. Was Sing in this? You mentioned Sing at the top.
Sing was Sing was 2016. It was
Okay.
it was the end of the last year.
So if we're talking just 2017, we're talking about
I mean, of the ones that I just went through, Beauty and the Beast obviously is going to be a
massive.
big hitter. Fate of the Furious, in that
Huge.
franchise.
Yeah. The big one for me though is going to be Boss Baby. Boss Baby spawned a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was massive. And so if we're talking about like where Logan ranked, I think Logan maybe ranked like maybe number 6 in the year.
Number 6 was Spider-Man: Homecoming with $334 million.
Yeah, so we're talking a little bit further up there than maybe I'll say number 11.
Number 11, spot on, Logan, $226.2 million.
Just shy of the top 10.
Right outside the top 10. Our number 1 film that year, it being 2017, was of course a Star Wars film with Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, $620 million domestic. Beauty and the Beast was number 2 with $504 million. Wonder Woman was number 3, $412 million. Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle was $404 million. I remember that one came out late in the year and basically was, I think, pretty much always number 2 behind Last Jedi, but it had some really long legs and it did really well. And
it did super
And then
well.
the sequel, Jumanji: The Next Level or whatever it was, pretty much did the same thing a few years later.
Yep. Both films really good.
Yep. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was number 5, $389.8 million. Spider-Man: Homecoming, we already mentioned, number 6. It, Chapter 1, or It Part 1, it didn't have a Part 1 at the time, but it was number 7 with $327 million. And basically another big surprise R-rated success there. Thor Ragnarok, which we saw together in theaters, $315 million at number 8. Despicable Me 3, which is funny alongside Despicable Me 4 right now in theaters. Despicable Me number 3 was number 9 with $264 million. 264.6 million. And then The Justice League was number 10 with $229.0 million. So yeah, Logan number 11, Fate of the Furious right behind it at number 12, Coco at number 13, Dunkirk number 14, Get Out, which we mentioned above, was number 15, and then the Lego Batman movie, followed by The Boss Baby. And then another one that had great legs, The Greatest Showman, and another Hugh Jackman at number 18 there. Might as well just round out the top 20 at this point. Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales was number 19, so it's probably the last time we revisited this year for the sake of this little mini game.
You could not talk about a further departure of films, in terms of quality.
Actually, I guess I'm trying to think. Do we do Pirates of the Caribbean and Spider-Man in the same year? And we would have done Spider-Man later. Yeah. So
yeah.
I guess was Spider-Man: Homecoming was the last time we revisited this.
A fantastic film.
Yeah. Anyway, number 20 was Kong Skull Island right there. So there you go. It was the top 20 films of 2017 domestically. So yeah, this came in at number 11 domestic. Worldwide, the gross was up to $619 million, which was up from the $414.8 million that the Wolverine had brought in a few years earlier. So worldwide, where do you think that one falls there, Cam? Now that you've seen a bigger slate of the movies in contention, think it goes up? You think it drops down?
I think it maybe drops down to 13.
13 was It with $702 million, so we are a little bit lower than.
Oh yeah, we're way lower on that one. Then I'm probably gonna say 22.
22, you dropped way down to the Kingsman, the Gold Circle, $410 million. So, it was, you were much closer with It at $702 million, only $80 million shy of that.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the 418.48 for the Wolverine.
Yeah,
My apologies. I would probably say we're probably looking at 15 maybe.
15 on the dot. Yep.
There you go.
Sorry,
I looked at that. Yeah, I was like, oh man, I better drop it way down low then.
Yep.
If that's the case.
Yep. Nope. 15. It fell just behind Justice League. Was it number 14? It number 13. Pirates performed way better. It was number 12 worldwide. Coco also performed better, number 11. Wonder Woman dropped a ways down to number 10. Thor Ragnarok stayed pretty much where it was at number 9. Guardians Volume 2 was number 8. Is a tricky one. Wolf Warrior 2, which I believe is a Chinese-only release, was number 7 worldwide. Spider-Man Homecoming stayed right there at number 6. Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle was up at number 5. Despicable Me also had much bigger worldwide gross numbers and hits our first billion-dollar grosser of that year at number 4. Fate of the Furious, another big international hit, number 3. And then the top 2 remain the same. Beauty and the Beast with $1.26 billion, and Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi with $1.3 billion at the top of the charts. Yeah. You know what I'm just looking at this right now that I completely forgot was also this year? The Tom Cruise Mummy, which was number 23 worldwide with $409 million, right behind Kingsman: The Golden Circle there. So, yeah, that was a year. At least Logan beat out Transformers: The Last Night, which was number 16. Okay. So back to some other stats. Our runtime here, 2 hours and 17 minutes. In the Fox X-Men timeline of things, we had the previous film in this little franchise, The Wolverine, was July of 2013. X-Men Days of Future Past was May of 2014. Deadpool was February of 2016. X-Men Apocalypse, May of 2016. Logan, March of 2017. Deadpool 2 would follow it up a year later in May of 2018. Dark Phoenix would be June of 2019. And then, finally, at Death's Door, The New Mutants, August of 2020. Our roll call director, James Mangold, who we most recently would have talked about on this show for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, had also done Girl Interrupted, previously had worked with Hugh Jackman on Kate and Leopold. He did Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma. He had also directed The Wolverine prior to this, and then Logan. And then after Logan, went on to do Ford v Ferrari and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And he is currently slated for the TBD Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi film. But given the recent run of Star Wars announcing films that never actually come out, we'll see if that one actually comes out. Our writers here, James Mangold, Scott Frank, and Michael Green. James Mangold was responsible for the story and screenplay on this one, having previously done the animation screenplay for the Disney 80s film Oliver and Company, as well as he wrote Girl Interrupted, Kate and Leopold, Walk the Line, as we previously discussed, and he would go on to write Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and is in the queue to write that Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi film. Scott Frank also worked on the screenplay, having previously written Get Shorty, Minority Report, and Marley and Me, as well as he did not do Wolverine Origins, but he did do The Wolverine, and then Logan, of course, and then more recently, he was the creator of the Anya Taylor-Joy Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit, that got everybody into chess for a couple months there. Michael Green also worked on the screenplay, having done a lot of superhero TV stuff, amongst other TV stuff, but I called out here Smallville, Heroes, Kings, which I believe is a series that only you are the only other person I think I've ever talked to about Kings, but it was that one season David versus the Goliath in a modern era.
David King Saul.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a modern retelling of the story of David and his rise to kinghood.
Ian McShane.
Yeah, Ian
McShane. The first time I saw Ian McShane in anything.
Same, actually.
I think probably right before he really hit it big in Deadwood.
Yeah, that was right before Deadwood, and prior to that he had done Pillars of Earth. And prior to that he was a big theater actor.
Yeah. Michael Green also wrote the Green Lantern film, the much maligned Green Lantern film. So funny to see him go from Ryan Reynolds to Logan here. After Logan, he just kept on going with Alien Covenant, Blade Runner 2049, and then he has done the Agatha Christie trilogy of Murder on the... is it Agatha Christie? I think it is. Murder on the Orient Express, the Death on the Nile, and Haunting in Venice. He also did the adaptation of Call of the Wild and American Gods. He wrote the Jungle Cruise with The Rock and Emily Blunt. And then he is slated in IMDb to be writing the BioShock movie, Jungle Cruise 2, and the Blade movie for Marvel. So we'll see which, if any, of those actually come out, since they all seem to have had some troubled development. Our cast of characters, of course, Hugh Jackman as Logan, as well as X-24, having played Wolverine since 2000. Right before he made his big break there as Wolverine, he made some waves on Broadway in Oklahoma as Curly. He was also in his early career there with things like Swordfish, and then he would go back to musical theater stuff with Les Miserables and The Greatest Showman, as mentioned earlier, and he will be returning to the role of Logan / Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine at the end of this month. Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, Professor X, since 2000 as well. Prior to that, of course, he was in Star Trek The Next Generation, as well as, any number of other Star Trek Next Generation era projects, all the way up through the Star Trek Picard series recently. This is one I always like to call out because of me being a weird theater nerd. He was in a production of Othello where he was Othello in an all-black cast otherwise. And it was like in the late 90s. It was basically like a race reversal role where, he was the titular Othello character. He was in The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion and the Emoji Movie. And bonus points if you recall what emoji he played in the Emoji Movie.
Dude, I don't know. I have no idea. I stayed away from the Emoji Movie as much as possible.
Oh, everybody did. But it was pretty notorious that he was the piece of shit. he was the poo emoji.
God, who thought? How did that
it was
movie
very
get
much
made?
he cashed a check.
How did that movie even get made, man?
With lots of branding deals. That is one of those movies that is littered with like product placement, like Candy Crushes all over it.
Oh, so they made money off of it.
Oh yeah.
That was a movie that made money. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not on the box office, but on the back end.
Actually, it disappointingly probably made money on the box office too, because it was targeting the same audience as Minions and shit like that. So, anyway, Daphne Keane makes her debut here as Laura / X-23. She'd actually been in a little mini series of something before called The Refugees, but Logan would be her big kind of breakout role. And then since that, she's gone on to be in the series His Dark Materials, as well as most recently The Acolyte. Boyd Holbrook is kind of the big bad Pierce here, or the big bad's henchman, I guess. Prior to this, he'd been in Narcos. After this, he would go on to be in The Predator, and most recently, he was one of the henchmen in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yep.
So we talked about him there as well. Stephen Merchant in here as Caliban. Probably best known as the co-creator of the UK version of The Office, as well as another Ricky Gervais collaborator in Extras. I will always think of him as the voice of Wheatley in Portal 2. After Logan, he would go on to be in Fighting with My Family and Jojo Rabbit. And I believe he's also like one of the co-creators of like the lip sync battles that they would do. Like that was a thing that like him and John Krasinski would do as like kind of a party fun thing, and they like introduced it to Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon took it to the show, and then they like obviously made a spin-off of it in its own show. But yeah,
that was
Stephen Merchant, a very funny guy.
Yeah, that was a thing in the like mid 20 teens.
Yeah,
lip sync battles.
Oh, I mean, I still like. I will still always see and smile when the Tom Holland.
The Tom Holland one was
one
iconic. The Tom Holland one. Tom Holland and Josh Gad have the two best ones of all time. Period.
I don't know which one's Josh Gad's.
I Touched Myself, where he dressed up as Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Kaylee Cuoco's co-star from Big Bang Theory, who he was up against Kaylee Cuoco. Her co-star showed up at the end, also dressed up as Trump, and they made out on stage. And It was super gross.
Yeah.
And I don't say that because it was two men kissing. I say that because it was two Donald Trumps kissing.
Yeah.
I'm queer as hell, and not even I can support that. That was fucked up.
Elizabeth Rodriguez plays Gabriella here. She'd been in the 2006 Miami Vice. She had a long stint on All My Children. She's probably best known for Orange is the New Black, where she was in that film or in that series for a good few years. She'd also do a short run on Fear the Walking Dead, and she was a minor character in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, as well as an episode of The Bad Batch. Like, she played the same character kind of across both series. Richard E. Grant is, I guess, kind of the big bad of the thing as Dr. Rice, having been in stuff like Hudson Hawk, Gosford Park, Doctor Who, including like a little bit of new Doctor Who recent stuff.
You pulled Hudson Hawk in?
I pulled based off of, if you go to his IMDb, it's like this person is known for, and it'll be like 4 of their like biggest credits. And Hudson Hawk was the like earliest of the bunch of his kind of bigger credits.
One of my guiltiest pleasure films of all time is Hudson Hawk.
There you go.
The movie is atrocious. It's terrible. But goddamn, is everybody having the time of their life in that movie? Everybody is.
I feel like I saw it on like Comedy Central all the time, in like the on airing on TV kind of version or whatever. Yeah. And like I know Bruce Willis is in it. I know nothing else about that movie.
Bruce Willis plays a like art thief or like museum thief.
Okay.
And he gets pulled into like a world conspiracy that also involves the Catholic Church. And his love interest is a nun.
Sure.
And it's just a massive comedy. It is one of my mom's favorite movies. We had it recorded from a TBS, like on a VHS tape recording from TBS, where like the beginning and end of commercials were like on there because like my brother would
you would stop the recording and then start it again when you thought when the movie was coming back.
We had tons of movies like that from like TBS and stuff, and so
we would do like when HBO would have like free weekends, we would record the crap out of those.
Oh, absolutely.
movies.
Yeah. For me, it was we didn't do too much of those because like growing up we weren't allowed to watch like my family didn't have PG-13 movies in the house and stuff like that, so obviously no rated R. So the movie listing of like what I could watch that was on HBO, very limited.
I mean, like one of the ones that I'm pitching to try and do next month, Camp Nowhere, is one of those movies that, and because it was always the thing with like HBO free weekends where it was like the first 5 minutes of the movie would be like pretty distorted because they were doing it to try and like curb piracy, things like that, and then it'd go into like normal fine stuff. So it just kind of like suffer through the weird wonkiness of that. And then go from there. But anyway,
it was the best. Camp Nowhere is fantastic. I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah. Other Richard E. Grant performances. He had a small run on Downton Abbey. He was in Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. He was the big bad evil like boss enemy in Sackboy: A Big Adventure, launch title for the PS5. And then he was, of course, a fun little Loki variant in season 1 of Loki.
Yes.
And he's been in Saltburn. In the more recent
Gosh, he was great, Saltburn too.
There you go.
Man, he is a great actor.
And then the last person I pulled in here, Eric LaSalle as Will Munson, the ill-fated father of the family. He'd previously been in Coming to America, probably best known for his long run on ER. And then afterwards, he would go on to be in the series Under the Dome. That was that weird thing of like, okay, I know it was like a Stephen King thing first, but then The Simpsons did it, so then it became this weird thing when you made it into a series where it's like, isn't this just the plot for the Simpsons movie? Anyway, Under the Dome. Some trivia here. Awards buzz. This is as of yesterday when I pulled this together, July 10th, 2024. It is Logan is number 215 in IMDb's top 250.
There you go.
It is between number 214, which is 2015's Room, starring Brie Larson.
Oh God, that movie is tragically beautiful.
And is followed up by 216, also from 2015, Spotlight. So this 2017 movie sandwiched in between a couple of big dramatic 2015 roles.
God, those were both fantastic films.
This is also Academy Award nominee for Best Adapted Screenplay, which it lost to Call Me By Your Name.
Well, that one's more problematic now.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, is it because Army
Armie
Hammer?
Hammer, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, a whole bunch of things are problematic if the people in them were problematic, but
Also,
we
like,
didn't know that at the time. We didn't know
yeah,
he was a weird cannibal guy.
yeah. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's kind of hot." And it's like I'm very concerned about also like the age difference. Like,
Oh, sure, yeah.
you get
I
it.
mean, I feel like that's kind of the conversation around that film.
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't seen it, so I'm
absolutely.
not going to really weigh
It
into the debate on that.
it is a problem in a lot of like gay film, gay media in
Oh, sure,
general.
yeah.
Is age gaps,
Well, yeah, it's like it's age gaps and trauma bonding or whatever like
trauma
that. Yeah.
bonding, and or like it's also been called closet bonding, like when two people find out like, oh, like other everything goes out the window once you realize that you're both gay, and including like things that are problems. For example, age, like power, a lot of things. A lot of things show up in being problems in gay media because of that.
Yeah.
So.
Stan Lee cameo. Did you catch a Stan Lee cameo in this one, Cameron?
No.
It's a trick question. There is not a Stan Lee cameo. In
Oh
this.
God. Okay.
Yeah, no. It was he at first when I was like looking through that, and like because when we would do like the Spider-Man ones or when we do a lot of like the old MCU stuff, like I would do that like little like who did Stan Lee kind of cameo as in this one, and so I was like, oh, it's not MCU, but he was doing stuff in all the Fox
Oh, yeah.
movies too. So it was looking up and yeah, I was like, oh, he's not in the credits on this one. Did he pass away? No, he passed away a year after this movie came out. So it was just yeah, they just didn't bring him in. And there is some of the trivia out there is like James Mangold had also considered like a Sabretooth cameo of Liev Schreiber, having played the role in the previous Wolverine film, as well as maybe like a couple other like X-Men in flashback or something like that. But he ultimately was like, I don't really want this to be weighed down with cameos or like other X-Men characters. I want this to be Logan's story. So
Also, I just think a cameo is tonally just not good
yeah,
for this film.
yeah,
in
no,
general,
it's absolutely fair.
the film's I think a bit too dark for a fun cameo.
Yeah, it's the like looking through the film. It's the kind of thing like maybe he could have been the vet that like Logan wakes up, alongside or something like that, or like even just somebody like there's like a guy in the vet office or whatever. But nope. But at the same time, like yeah, because this is also around the same time that we have like Stan Lee cameoing as the stripper DJ or whatever in the Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no Stan Lee cameo in this one. The rare Marvel film that did not have a Stan Lee cameo. And also because this one has a very high body count, I have brought back the alloutofbubblegum.com kill count.
Dude,
So yes, this is a kill count courtesy of alloutofbubblegum.com. Which is where Logan and I would discuss all of the Bond ones, and then it's come up in a handful of films here. But it is a breakdown by Long Carabine and Hatred, but it's like H83TR3D. And I'm like, that's too many letters for Hatred.
shout out to
too,
Leet
but
Speak.
yeah, exactly.
It's wild seeing that like out in the wild these days.
So I have a few questions for you, similar to like our box office gross stuff. How many kills do you think Logan has? How many kills do you think X-23, aka Laura, has? And how many kills do you think X-24 has? And then lastly, how many overall kills do you think are in here? It is a brutal film.
It is a very brutal film.
I'll give you the like. I've given you those three characters in order. They have the three highest kill counts.
Absolutely.
Logan, then X-23, then X-24.
Geez, X-24, I'm just going to go ahead and say like maybe 8.
Okay.
I don't recall him. He's really more of like the tank getting more hits and like being like shot at or like stabbed than doing the killing.
Mm-hmm.
Still kills people pretty brutally. Laura, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 20.
Okay.
And then Logan, I'm going to rack that up there to, let's just go ahead and say 40.
40? All right. You're pretty close on a couple of those, I think.
Did I undercount X-24?
Yes. X-24 is undercounted. You said 8 there. Before I give you their actual counts, how many overall kills do you think are in here? Confirmed kills.
Oh, confirmed kills?
Yeah.
This is where you get tricky, because, like, Professor X should have a rank up there, but, I'm just going to go ahead on a limb and say maybe 52.
Okay, we're all 52. You're, based on your guesses, you're at least 68. Because you said 40 for Logan, 20 for X23,
I'm not doing
8
math
for...
in my head right now. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and say, let's say 80. Let's
80?
round up to 80.
All right, 80 I think is the one you actually get almost closest on. I think, So Logan has a total of 33 kills. So you're a little over with 40 on that one.
Yeah, I should have rounded. I was going to round up to 35, but I was like, let's stack on an extra 5.
Yeah.
Just for the hell of it.
Laura has 26 kills compared to your guess of 20. And X24 has 12 compared to your guess of 8.
I'm not that far off on any of those.
Yeah, no. 85 is the total kill count. So you were close on X24 and you were close on the overall. We have Wolverine kills all of the quote-unquote cholos at the top when they shoot up his car.
Yeah.
Kills 4 people there in brutal fashion. Pierce has a kill. Obviously, it's off-screen, but we see the aftermath of him having killed Gabriella. She's Like You is what they've kind of broken down. A 25 kill sequence. It's the first sequence where Laura kind of reveals that she's a Wolverine-esque person. Gets a whole bunch of kills in there. 25 kills overall, but this is also probably just where most of Laura's kills are coming from. A good chunk of them, I guess, some more are going to come in kind of the final sequence as well.
Well, in the final sequence, she only kills a handful of dudes. So
yeah, but yeah, this one is largely X23, and then Wolverine gets a few people, and then gets a few more people when they're in the car. Project 23. So in like the video sequence, we see a couple of kills. We get a mutant child jumping off the roof to his death. We get another mutant child burning a Reaver alive. We get Pierce killing the store clerk. We get in the casino. So I believe these kills are shared between Wolverine and Professor X, but it's like all of the seizure people in the casino. And specifically of like the people that Wolverine doesn't kill outright, I think they're only giving Professor X like 2, and it's like the 2 civilians we see like crash because they're locked and frozen kind of thing.
That's interesting.
Everybody else, and because they say this in like the news report kind of after the math of like 400 people are recovering from temporary paralysis. So they didn't die from his incident. They are just were temporarily frozen. But yeah, obviously Wolverine comes in and brutally kills a whole bunch of them as they like slowly turn their eyes and see it coming. We get a lot of X24's kills come in the farm scene. He obviously kills the family, and then he kills all of like the other rural people that are coming to give the family a hard time. He just slaughters a whole bunch of them. So I think that's where most of his kills are coming from. Then we get another 30 kills in the forest sequence. Again, this is where Wolverine and X23 rack up a lot of stuff.
You get a cup. Kids only really kill what's his face. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the kids have a couple kills in here.
Oh, that's right. The girl
Jamaica uses a whirlwind of sharp wooden pines to kill a couple Reavers.
She eviscerates one of them.
Yeah.
Just absolutely tears them to pieces. It's fucking rad.
Yeah. Bobby uses his powers to electrocute a couple Reavers. And then, Joey and Mira use their powers to hold Donald Pierce down, and Charlotte, Erica, and Jamaica, who I would not have been able to tell you all had names, use their powers to wrap him up in grass, breaking his neck and crushing his body. And then, lastly, Wolverine dies.
I'd probably actually give that kill to Bobby, because Bobby was like shooting lightning right into his heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shared kill.
It's a shared kill for sure, but like I would give that the rest get the assist. I think Bobby takes it, because everybody was like, we're going to do this crazy thing. And Bobby just like points his finger out and just like zaps his heart. And it's like, oh shit.
I mean, there's like, it's like when I watched it, it was very much like the most gruesome part of that is the foliage like snapping his neck in a very unnatural way, and like that's when I think the light goes out of him.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's kind of all happening like pretty much simultaneously.
Shout out to the girl who was not doing too much by just breathing like freezing air on him, like nitrous oxide on him.
Yeah, I don't think she gets I don't think she gets credited with a kill, but obviously, yeah, she freezes that guy's arm and and snaps that off.
Rad as hell.
Yeah. And then lastly, X-24 gets one last kill, even after he is killed, because of course Wolverine dies from the impalement slash unable to fight the healing anymore. So yeah, 85 overall kills is their final tally. The unconfirmed and uncounted is the implication that every other mutant in the world is dead, pretty much. Xavier is mentioned to have inadvertently killed a lot of civilians in the Westchester incident, as well as 7 X-Men.
Well, I don't think their whole thing isn't that they've killed mutants; it's that they genetically made it so there's no more mutants.
I mean, they've tracked and killed a lot of them too.
Oh, that's
like yes,
right.
the meta kind of conversation that happens a couple times over the course of the film, and I love when we get to the end and like Dr. What's his butt, Dr. Rice is kind of like monologuing about it, and Wolverine just shoots him in the middle of his monologuing, shoots him dead. But the illusion that he's kind of saying there, and we get a couple other references to it over the course of the film, is that they like genetically altered corn syrup. And just because of its like proximity to everything, that is what has prevented New Mutants from being born, and it probably also either weakened or made it easier to weaken and kill a lot of the other mutants.
It was like he mentioned like, yeah, if you just restructure food, then
we can use that, to work in our favor. Kind of thing. Yeah.
It was the whole thing about it's like, well, we figured out what was causing mutations, and so we just prevented it. And I'm like, that's an interesting way to basically say we genocided an entire future of people.
Yeah, as he says, we harness the power to control who gets, and obviously that's what the whole facility in Mexico City was about.
And I should say, like the kids were still born; they just weren't born mutants. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. And then there are probably some other kills that Wolverine would have had from like Reavers on motorcycles and stuff, but we don't know if they actually die or not in the like kind of chase
Bleeding Cool
sequence
doesn't
out
count
of there.
it,
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there you go with the all out of bubblegum body count here. Lastly, some just other general trivia from the film. James Mangold stated this movie is set in 2029 to avoid any conflict with the timeline established in X-Men Days of Future Past, but ultimately his goal was to make it a standalone movie that wasn't really bound to any kind of continuing or previous storylines or setting up sequels or anything like that. And I think like, hey, even now, or furthermore now in the like Marvel Cinematic Multiverse thing, you could absolutely say that like this is technically a different, X-Men universe than even the original X-Men trilogy or the new class ones or any of that kind of stuff. So, just kind of does it, or even that it stands separate from X-Men Wolverine Origins, the Wolverine, and this. But, according to director James Mangold, allowing the movie to be R-rated was important, not so much for violent content, but for style. Quote, "For me, what was most interesting in getting the studio to okay an R rating was something entirely different. They suddenly let go of the expectation that this film is going to play for children, and when they let go of that, you are free in a myriad of ways. The scenes can be longer, ideas being explored in dialogue or otherwise can be more sophisticated, storytelling pace can be more poetic, and less built like attention span deficit theater."
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of, like, I read that quote before after I started rewatching the film and then kind of before I finished it. And I think like great examples of that are the old Western that Charles and Laura watch, that then Laura kind of uses to eulogize Wolverine later in the film. And then, just even a lot of like quiet stuff where you have like some of it, I think the extra moments of Wolverine falling asleep as trying to drive to North Dakota and her just kind of like letting him sleep telling him to sleep, grabbing the wheel. Like we spend so much extra time with that I feel like would have been like cut down and edited down in a, more PG-13 version of this or something like that.
I really do think.
But then also there's a huge amount of fucking bloody violence as well.
I think the real touching father-daughter moments that establishes that relationship only works if you have these long, quiet moments, because that's where these are not talkative characters where they're going to like have a conflict of word that will help them resolve whatever issues they're dealing with.
Yeah.
These are insular people who, how do you make these instances work where you show their affection for one another? You do it in these long, quiet moments.
Yeah, I mean, like all of the farmhouse stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
I was going to bring that up.
All that absolutely is like
that entire
just
section's
character
cut
moments.
Out.
Yeah,
that entire section's cut out, and I think,
or it's severely cut down, and it basically is like, oh, you saving it with the horses. You have like a quick beat at dinner, and then X-24 shows up and slaughters everybody.
Yeah. I think that's what you get in a PG-13 version of this movie.
Yeah.
In the rated R version, we get the real firm establishment, actually, that Charles and Logan have developed their own father-son bond, which is freaking hilarious because Logan's way fucking older than Charles.
Sure, yeah.
Which also speaks to when Charles is then enfeebled and is incapable of like handling himself. What that like, I will speak to it in a minute, but like, yeah. Moving forward.
The last little item in here, kind of already alluded to, and I might pepper in some other stuff if the conversation draws it out, because I did read through a lot more trivia stuff here. But as mentioned previously, this was the first superhero movie to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. And it was the first superhero movie to be nominated for screenwriting since The Incredibles in 2004. So, yeah, shout out to everybody being real impressed with this one. Oh, I guess one other little bit of trivia that I'll just throw in here, because, of course, 2017, a ton of like fan stuff, like from the earliest trailers and images and stuff. People were like, "Oh my god, this has such Last of Us vibes." And James Mangold has talked about how like he was bombarded with like imagery, having never played the game. He has since played the game and said, "Yeah, that's fucking great. That's a great game." And then people were like, "You should direct The Last of Us. You should bring that to film." And he was like, "Well, you kind of already told me I already did it, so I don't really feel like I need to do that." And then obviously we have now since gotten the Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey version on HBO that'll theoretically be back sometime next year, maybe early 2026.
Yeah, they're filming it right now.
They're filming it, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see when we pick back up with that story. But yeah, so shout outs to the like strong lone wolf and like cub vibes that this one, like I feel like that's always been a trope, but it definitely felt like this hit at a time where like this, leads into The Mandalorian, and it leads into all these other versions of that story that we've gotten since, and was just one of those like very prominent cases of it.
I think the last film or piece of media to kickstart that trend back up in Hollywood was maybe Leon the Professional.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a big other example of it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm sure we've had plenty of other cases since, but yeah. Cool. So Cam, revisiting this since I don't know how often you've rewatched this since originally released in 2017. But what did you think? How does it hold up?
I mean, it holds up fantastically. It's only from 2017, but it is one of the best films of 2017. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best superhero films of all time. I think it really ranks up there as far as being the one of, if not the best non-MCU Marvel film.
Sure.
I think it takes what the X-Men movies had fumbled up to that point with, and like the later ones had fumbled up a bit, until we got like this really like poignant film that I think one set the trend that you can like Deadpool set the trend that you could have a rated R superhero film that works commercially. Logan, I think, is like the proof of that pudding. Like, we get the fully budgeted film of this, and we get it as this is it's a Western, straight up. It's got that lone wolf and cub vibes, but I think for me, especially, this happened the last time I saw it, and it happened again this time, is that the scene where Professor X dies, The last time I watched this was during the pandemic, and I had to stop watching it then. Because the scene where Professor X dies reminded me of when my foster mother passed away. And a lot of the caring for Professor X up to that point reminded me a lot of like the last year or so of her life. And so taking care of a sick parent as they're in the last days of their life are like really, really fucking traumatic. And luckily this time around I was able to finish the film, and quite like wasn't like a difficult thing. Still reminded me of those moments, but the wounds weren't as fresh. It's been about 6 years. But like that is a point in the movie where it's like, one, I always complain about feeling old all the time because I had early onset arthritis and other stuff like that, and so like everything, like I'm 34 turning 35 this year, but goddamn, sometimes do I feel way older.
Your bones are 90.
Yeah, my bones are pretty much 90.
Yeah, I think.
There's a lot of like, and I felt like, oh, okay, this thing that is like, you yourself aren't well, but you're taking care of an even older person, or like an even more ill person. And there's a story of like just that, like the struggle of. You also have like vast poverty. Like, there's no expansion in this. There's no vast wealth or resources of the X-Men. It's a very dirty, grimy film.
Yeah, Logan has resorted to being an Uber driver.
Pretty much, yeah, and it's pretty fantastic the way that it's handled and done. All that being said, I also say that it is a wonderful departure from the Old Man Logan comic book, which is not filmable. The Old Man Logan comic book is like very fascinating, and I definitely say if you're like a fan of X-Men, you're a fan of Logan, you're a fan of the MCU in general, it's an easy pick up and read couple of volumes. But it is also like very comic booky in the way that it's done, and it's not a young wolf or wolf and cub type story. It's more of like a buddy cop story type thing. It's Logan and Hawkeye, who's now gone blind, traveling across America to make money so Logan can pay his farm bill to the inbred Hulklings, like that are the children of Hulk and She-Hulk. Like, it's not like fundamentally just like not sound as a like anywhere outside of comic books. That being said, like it's a pretty good comic book story of Logan and like what happens and what goes on. But it's dark and it's brutal and it's twisted in a lot of ways. But yeah, great departure from it. Great way of taking like a source material and immediately stepping away from it in a great direction. And yeah, just the overall thing. I have a couple other things I want to say, but I want to give you time to speak about it.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I'd watched this, but it was definitely like fun to go back to, and because there are so many like smaller, quiet moments, they are a lot of moments that like I had forgotten about in comparison to like the big bombast that we're so used to seeing in the genre. And so yeah, I found myself really enjoying those like quieter, intimate sequences, while also still like remembering that like when Professor X is in the farmhouse bed and like talking to Logan at the end, I'm like, oh, I remember this isn't Logan. this is X-24, and so it's just kind of like inevitable. It's this sad moment. It's this realization, I think, in like that you can probably only have a second time going through of like, oh, he's not getting this beautiful moment of closure and like catharsis with who he thinks he is. So like Logan and Charles never have that final conversation that like we, the audience, saw them have, in quotes. And so it's like this extra little bit of like bittersweet tragedy.
That is the part that broke me a
Mhm.
couple years ago because my foster mother passed away in like the middle of the night while she was in the hospital getting ready for surgery.
Mhm.
And so it's like there was no like final moments at her bedside. Like I had not been able to go see her because I had been sick. I picked up a cold on our way back from Extra Life that year, and it had so she'd been in the hospital since then. Like as soon as I got back home, she went into the hospital,
Mhm.
and she never came back out. And it was a like long drawn out process, and most of that time I wasn't able to see her.
Yeah.
And so this like sometimes I wish for and I dream that I've had those moments of closure, and it is a bitter feeling of like regret that you don't get these cinematic moments of closure in life. You just
Yeah.
don't. They don't exist. Um, Even people who are like, "Oh, I was at the bedside." It's like, okay, cool, and then they tell you what it's like at the bedside of a dying person, and it's traumatic as hell.
Hmm.
Like this is, and so like that curt, brusque, brutal reality check.
Yeah.
That this is not that film where you're going to get that beautiful send off. It is it is a tragic. It is tragic, and it is taken away from both these people.
Yeah, there was a moment that I would always think of in that kind of conversation that, like, admittedly, it kind of undercuts its own message, but it popped back up in like one of my feeds recently when Marshall's father dies in How I Met Your Mother. Like, Marshall goes through most of that episode pissed because of how sudden it was and because like he lingers on like the last words my father and I had were like really stupid and mundane and blah blah blah. And he has like he harps on like the last voicemail he has from his dad is like a butt dial, and like he gets the voicemail I think after the passing or something like that, so he thinks it's going to be some sort of profound thing, and it's like he listens to it and finds out it's a butt dial and just like is angry. And like they revisit it at the end of the episode of like him finally confronting his friends with like why he's so pissed about all this. And he's like, and my dad just left me a butt dial and I was nothing. And so up until that point, it is this very realistic, like, yeah, sometimes you don't always get the beautiful, like touching, heartfelt moment. And then they let the butt dial play long enough that like the dad picks it up and is like, oh, hey, Marshall, sorry, I didn't realize you were talking to my butt there. Anyway, buddy, love you. Always great seeing you and Lily. Hope you're doing well, or whatever. And it basically gives him like the closure moment that he
Yeah,
wants. And it's like
it's
it's that like, well, yeah, I mean that is a more beautiful moment for this character, but it is far less true to life.
what I what,
The
what I
example,
enjoyed about that is he decided to keep it for himself and
yeah.
then told the story of the butt dial and like all the other stuff at his dad's funeral.
Oh, okay. Maybe I saw the clip that was like all of the friends seeing him,
Oh yeah, yeah.
seeing him like discover that it's not just a butt dial or whatever. But yeah, to your point, um, uh, similarly to your case a little bit, early pandemic or right before the pandemic, actually, thankfully, I guess, in hindsight, my grandmother who'd been dealing with stuff for a long time, and her memory had really gone. I got kind of I got the heads up from my mom and aunt, who had been her primary caretakers for a lot of her last years before they finally put her kind of in a little assisted living facility. Got the heads up that like she had a good day, but we don't know how many are left, kind of thing. And I had never seen her. I'd never gone to the assisted living facility, even though it is like now that we live here and that my parents live a block away, like the assisted facility was a block north of their house. So like she was nearby even from my old place.
Don't we drive past that every time we go to Chipotle?
No.
Different area. Okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just a house. It was just a house that like
Okay.
had a few elderly folks and like in-home care kind of stuff. But yeah, no, it's north.
I was like, I do not recall seeing any sort of facility.
Yeah, no.
So
It's north in the neighborhood,
Gotcha,
just
okay.
north of their house.
I was like, where are they hiding that thing?
Yeah. But like, so I had not been to her, and I had like actively made the choice for a long time to just not see her anymore because I felt like I was never seeing her anyway because her mind was so far gone. But mostly to be there for my mom and my aunt. I did end up swinging by like the next day, and it was a bad day. She was like in pain and just kind of like writhing and kind of like tangled up in her hospital bed pretty much the whole day. But I did get to see her. I don't know if she saw or registered that it was me there. But then I think a day or two later she passed. So I got like a last moment with her, but it wasn't any kind of like beautiful orchestral swelling or anything like that. So, it's just not always the case.
It's funny. The last moment, like last time I spent with her, my foster mom, it was one of those long, quiet moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot I could say about my foster mom. That is like, she was a person. She had her good and her bad, but we had it is a moment of like, oh, that was like a very sweet moment for us, to like our last moment, but that was a precipice, and the understanding was that we were going to have a lot more. And so it's like that is the kind of like twist of the knife on that one. Is you don't really like, there's a sweetness to that moment, that last moment, but that sweetness is very bittersweet because this is a film that touches in a lot of places. Like, I've known people who talk about how this like movie made them feel about their fatherhood and what it meant to be a parent, and like this film is art. Like, it is truly art. It touches in ways, and it's outside just like, oh, it has a lot of like touchstones for movies and film. Like, it touches the human soul and like what it means to have lived.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about like, oh, like living legacy. Like, this is a movie about what it means to have lived a life. Whether that like, and that's the good, the bad, the ugly of it all. And it is a truly visceral experience of seeing the end of somebody's life who has lived too long. To the point where the adamantium in his body is what's poisoning him and killing him.
Yeah.
Like, a fascinating concept to be like, hey, anybody else having all that metal in their body would definitely kill them.
Yeah.
But you're able to live because you do that. But eventually, like, when does that give?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is the poison has just been there long enough that it is now poisoning you quicker than you can heal.
Yeah.
And especially when you throw all of like the violence that you deal with as well on top of that, it's like, yeah, you're stuck.
You've also been alive for a couple hundreds
of years.
Yeah, like you are not a spring chicken.
Yeah,
like you're not like a young guy dealing with this. You were already a couple hundred years old when you got the skeleton, like when you got the adamantium. Like, you were already that old.
Yeah. It's I like that. I like that juxtaposed with Charles being the much more like physical representation of somebody too old and kind of near end of life kind of stuff, and the dimension that he's going with, and especially the idea of dementia in the greatest mind in the world, as they kind of touch on in the film.
The world's most powerful psychic. What does it mean when their brain starts to go?
Yeah, they're like the idea that like his brain, following this Westchester incident, has been deemed a weapon of mass destruction because it did kill a bunch of people there, including a lot of his X-Men.
It killed a lot of people. Not only that, but it also, it's like seizures. Seizures can happen at any point, right? Yep. So it's not even like a controlled thing you could do. It is just wild and out there.
Yeah.
Which is why they're in Mexico.
Yeah. In Mexico, in a like tipped over silo that is like serving as a makeshift Cerebro to just kind of house his issues. But even there, yeah, they can be brutal. So yeah, I loved like all that stuff, and again, like just visually, this movie is incredibly stunning, and they take those moments to make it look good. The thing that doesn't hold up ends up being like weirdly some of like the car sequences and action sequences. Yeah. Like I found myself really thinking about it when he is trying to make a break for it and he drives the limo into like the steel fence kind of thing. And in any other movie you see that and he just plows through it and drives off into it. But here it's like he pushes into it, but it's just too strong. He doesn't have enough gas and can't break through the fence. And like the lingering shot that we get on that is just like, oh, this is just weird CG stuff.
Yep.
Compared to like the much more weirdly natural looking stuff of like all of the violence, pretty much.
Or how weirdly good X-24 looks.
Yeah, I like they do a good job masking X-24 in making it largely like night sequences, or the brief glimpses of him that we get in kind of the forest stuff. It's okay. Well, you also have the benefit of, yeah, there's still Hugh Jackman kind of there, and you're just taking advantage of that like de-aging tech that's getting better and better and better at this point.
And it's a interesting thing. We don't notice the uncanny valley of it when it keeps putting us back on. Like, camera keeps focusing back on, Hugh Jackman,
old grizzled Jackman,
grizzled Jackson, and so you have like that juxtaposition where you are seeing the life that you're seeing is from the real person, but we're not lingering too long on the like CGI de-aging thing.
Yeah.
So it's really fantastic.
I remember that being a fun surprise in the film for the first time, because like none of that had been in the trailers or anything like that. So
they kept that hidden.
It was like, great. Who is this big bad? That's and obviously the first actual flavor we get of it is confusing to us, the audience, because it is like, why the fuck did Logan just kill this guy? Wait, that's not Logan. That's way too young to be Logan. What's going on? And then we piece together what's going on, and we see like the footage from Pierce's is like his little van or whatever outside. So yeah, I think a couple of like the action scenes end up being like the weakest, weirdest bits, where it's just like, oh, this is clearly like CG'd or green screened in or something like that. But so much of it is just taking full advantage of those like yellows or dark blues or something like that. That I was like, oh yeah, sign me up for this. This is absolutely just a freaking stunner of a film. Although one of the weird things that I think about now, kind of in the rewatch when I have a little bit more time to like think about the film, is the like I get it, it's necessary for the plot, but like the absurdity of this shaky cam footage, but very highly edited exposition camera phone thing that clearly also has to be camera phone footage from other people, because like it's not her going in and like giving like a kid a shot and the kid like lashing out or something. It's like security guards or some other shit.
Yeah.
But like she has peppered that into her edited footage. She has footage of like kid jumping off the roof, and it's just like, all right, well, you kind of like again, it's a piece that we need to give us like that inside scoop, but it's like when you think about it for a minute, it's like, this isn't possible. Like, especially with not how you framed it, of like, you smuggled this footage out. Okay, well, you smuggled it out a week ago, but you also have, some significant phone editing skills, apparently.
2029, baby.
Yeah.
I can edit stuff on my phone. So.
Yeah, but do you have how many other phones worth of footage do you have that you can edit from?
Like right now, none. But I mean, imagine if you did.
Yeah, it's like, okay. I mean, then the comparison is,
in 2017 though. Fuck no.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying like even there, if you wanted to go like 2024 or whatever, okay, sure, she has stitched together a whole bunch of other TikToks or something like that, but also no, she hasn't, because she would have also needed to get that like secret footage from other people.
That's the kicker
stuff.
part, is like, how did she get all that footage?
Yeah,
and it's like, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, shout out to it, and shout out to them playing with the like, okay, we see the first part of it, and then the phone battery dies. So yeah, lots of fun there. I love the sequence where Laura reveals that she can speak. And this was a bit of the trivia I saw that was basically like in the casting calls. They were looking for two kind of like really essential things. One was like a person who could cry on command. She nailed that. And also like shout out to something I probably didn't catch before, but definitely caught this time around. Like when she's crying over Logan's body, it is ugly crying. And it's not a crying you usually see, because not only is it like like ugly crying eyes, but like you see the snot dripping down her nose.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, actors never have that piece. Even if they are crying on command, they're never doing the like that is a legitimate like feat that you can cry to that degree where
Yes.
where like you open up your nasal cavities and just blurt snot. But yeah, so that was one piece, and then the other thing that one of the trivia things called out was like she was basically asked to improvise some dialogue and like interrupt Logan, and so Logan's Hugh Jackman's doing like part of the scene or whatever, and she just goes into that rant full in Spanish, in like fully articulated Spanish, and basically like bowled everybody over. And I think there's the Spanish is not translated or subtitled or captioned or anything in the film, but somebody's kind of like broken it out, and a lot of it boils down to like he's like, why the hell haven't you talked? And she's saying effectively like, why would I talk to you? You yell at me about everything. Like, and it's just like very moody. Like, of course I haven't talked to you. You've been a piece of shit this entire time. Why would I do that? But all in Spanish. So yeah, shout out to that fun little sequence. And yeah, just shout out to like again, Laura or Daphne Keane just comes in and crushes this role in what could very easily be a thankless role. All things considered, but no, she comes in, nails it. They also highlight that like she wasn't actually able to be in the casino, so some of those sequences are either green screened or they used her like stunt double because she was only like 11 at the time. So they had to bring in her stunt double, who I believe the stunt double ended up impressing James Mangold so much. She, I believe, is the Pinegone like whirlwind girl.
Oh, okay.
They basically like cast her as that person in the film.
Yeah, it fits. That's like right frame of everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I can find like what the gist of that bit is. Come on. I know I saw you. Why is it not in here? All right. I guess you didn't put it in under Daphne. I gotta look up Laura or something like that. Anyway, yeah, I love just so much of this, and it's definitely not a like, oh, watch this all the time kind of movie, but it is a fun one to revisit and see. Yeah, the swings that they were taking with this. You mentioned kind of at the top the idea of like maybe this was done in response to Deadpool and the success that Deadpool had as an R-rated film. Some of the trivia very much comes in and says, no, this wasn't a direct response to Deadpool. It was very much, we're going to do this Old Man Logan story, and so it was always going to be rated R. And they basically had that in the works before Deadpool came out and had like its great success as a rated R film. So yeah. Okay, so here's one bit. Yeah, while auditioning for the part of Laura, Daphne Keane asked director James Mangold if she could improvise her lines. After Hugh Jackman started his dialogue, Keane interrupted him, yelling at him in perfect Spanish, something that was later included in the finished movie. Her dedication for that scene was praised by Jackman and Patrick Stewart. And then, okay, here it is. When Laura shouts at Logan in Spanish, the lines are not translated, but her words, roughly transcribed and translated, are, why do you want me to talk to you if you're always insulting me, yelling at me? If you try to leave me behind, you want me to open my mouth? And he's like, all right, shut up. So yeah, love their like back and forth.
It was fantastic.
It's probably the element I wish we had more of, because it comes so late in the game that it feels like we are much like the characters, admittedly. So, you know, I guess shout out thematically, but like we're robbed of the potential relationship that these characters could have, much like they are. So, I guess I, made my own point there. Any other thoughts or favorite moments or anything you want to shout out?
I mean, I'm just gonna put this out there. My absolute favorite moment is also a callback to the Wolverine. Wolverine that came out in 2013. Hugh Jackman's Logan. He is sitting in a car, I believe, not a car. He's in a room with a character who never comes back. Obviously, Wolverine didn't get a direct sequel. But she brings up that she's a mutant that has the ability to see how people die. Mm. She goes, it's not like I don't see the whole vision. It's like seeing through a keyhole. You only you can see what's happening, but you don't get the full picture. And she tells Logan that you will die on your back with your heart in your hand still beating.
Hey, it turns out she was seeing it more poetically than and metaphorically than literally. Well, partially literally.
Yeah. Well, she when she says that, so she says it to him, and at the very end, as they're holding hands, like he like is squeezing her hand, and it's the way he's holding, he can feel her pulse in her hand, and it's a beautiful poetic moment of when he says, so this is what it's like there is so much interpretation that can be done in that line of, oh, so this is what it's like to be a father, or oh, this is what it's like to finally die, this is what it's like to die, but to know, oh, this is what she meant.
Yeah.
Or like there's a whole level of layers to all of that make this scene my favorite scene out of the film.
Yeah.
It is a brutal moment where Laura looks at her friends and they're like there's nothing we can do, and so she's just helpless in this moment, and she's helpless and she's scared, and he gives her these like the parting words, the words that he always wanted somebody to tell him, which is, don't be what they be more than what they made you.
Yeah.
And giving her an affirmation that she's a person, not a weapon. It is tragic and beautiful, and is just full of everything I love. Like, it culminates what I love about this movie, which is, shout out also, and I thought about it earlier today. I was like, was that just me? Did I I know people have said that, but was it ever confirmed? And sure enough, James Manigold on Twitter said, hey, at James Manigold, is this what, did you have this planned? And he goes, prize goes to this Twitter user.
Yeah. I'm looking at the IMDb trivia here. In Wolverine, Logan's travel companion Yukio predicted that Logan would die with his chest ripped open and his heart in his hand. Obviously people discussed the idea of Wolverine lying down with his chest ripped open from the branch and
holding the X-24's claws. He clawed him in the chest too.
And holding the hand of his daughter, his flesh and blood, and therefore his symbolic heart. And Mangold later confirmed this notion via Twitter, as you just said.
Yep. An incredible, poetic, this movie is a true Western in that it is about, I feel like true Westerns are more about the people than it is about the events of the story. Whether it's the Man with No Name trilogy, where the Man with No Name is really just meant to be a force of change, or a force of something happening in the lives of the people around him, and at least in a fistful of dollars and a few dollars more. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is he's a much more of a greater personal agent with a goal in mind. There is and it's more about what happens to these people and what they do, and about who they are, and that's what this movie is. This movie is about Logan underneath all the violence and all of the superhero stuff, all that. You strip all of that away, and you get a story about a man finding out he has a daughter and doing whatever he can to keep her safe.
Yeah. As you're talking, I just scrolled to the trivia that is, according to the director's commentary, the film is called Logan because it's about the man, not the hero Logan has become tired of being.
Yep.
I think that's probably a good place to wrap up some thoughts there. So let's dive into the report card, grading from A+ to F. What do you want to give Logan here, Cam?
I don't know. Maybe it's an A+. It's a total A+. This is arguably the best non-MCU Marvel film.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, A+ for me as well. Shout out to that. Some extra credit, other suggestions if you did like this. Your mileage will vary, but Disney Plus is going to recommend The Wolverine. Yeah, probably okay. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Skip it.
Absolutely.
Echo.
Oh, watch the first half until it gets to present, the quote unquote, watch everything up until he leaves Weapon X. After that, it's a shit show. It's bad.
That movie is like, that movie is always just summed up to me by him holding his like hand in front of the mirror and just the like worst just like CGI claws possible.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
Echo is another suggestion. Kind of one of the latest things that you'll get in the MCU side of things. Deadpool and Deadpool 2, solid picks there. Again, we'll be doing Deadpool 2 in a couple weeks' time. And then, yeah, you can probably skip X-Men Dark Phoenix and X-Men Apocalypse. X-Men Days of Future Past is fine. But, yeah, that's what Disney Plus is going to suggest for you.
Days of Future, I was not as high on it as everybody else was.
I thought it did a good job of combining the original kind of X-Men cast and then the new
I felt it was
first class.
Yeah, I thought it was serviceable for me, but yeah, overall.
It was it was very much all right. Well, first class, you're just giving us a brand new kind of like canon stuff, and then when they immediately came back and were like, we're gonna do Days of Future Past, and it's like, okay, so you gave us one movie with this like new cast of characters before you're gonna jump in and like rely on some of the old characters and stuff. All right, whatever. Anyway, extracurriculars. You watching anything else on Disney Plus? I imagine we're probably both just in the like, hey, the Acolyte.
Yeah, Acolyte is pretty much it right now.
Yeah, I watched the new episode right before we started recording this. So, yeah, I don't think I watched anything else Disney Plus related. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk all about Logan. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
Sorry, you called me Logan for a second.
Sorry, Cameron. Sorry. My brain is in like auto mode, and obviously we just spent a lot of time talking about Logan, so I just threw it to you as if you were Logan. No. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cameron?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to Logan. Congrats on getting married. I'm gonna milk that for the like end of show call out for as long as it's worth. Shout out to you, especially because you couldn't be here to talk about what is arguably your favorite MCU film.
Sure. Yeah, it's you got like this. You got Logan Lucky as like a couple of those titular Logan films that are right up his wheelhouse. So,
yep.
You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will shout out our That Nerdy Site show from this last week. We got Cameron's kind of wrapped up thoughts as he has finished A Shadow of the Erd Tree over on the Elden Ring side of things. We got some updated Dawn Trail thoughts. We dive deep into Dragon Age Inquisition because I'd been playing that, and we kind of share our thoughts on that 10-year-old game. And then I give some very preliminary thoughts on Unicorn Overlord, which, spoiler, I have continued enjoying and we'll probably talk about more next week's episode. So
looking forward to it.
And yeah, this week, next week's That D Plus show will be the Acolyte wrap-up, as we will be discussing episodes 7 and 8 next week, which reminds me we got to record that ahead of time since you're going out of town next weekend.
Yep.
So we will be back with that next week. Once again, if you like what you heard, please remember to like, rate, review, share, subscribe, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed. All right.